add a little bit of different color to the face to make it stand out. So we're adding in a little bit of rose brown, going back to our uniform green, to give her face a little bit more warmth. And then to highlight that, mixing in some basic skin tone. So we still have a somewhat green face, but there's a slightly different tone to it. It should draw the eye, so now her face won't get lost in the sea miniature. Next is the underbelly, and we have a whole bunch of overlapping plates here to paint. And we want to give a really good definition to all of those plates. Starting off with charred brown, and this is going to frame this area. Virtually all this is going to be covered up. However, we want to put this down first so we get a nice dark line between each of those plates. And we want to make sure we don't cover that up while we paint the preceding colors. As you can see here, we're putting down Beastie Brown now. Once again, that charred brown just staying in between all those little plates. And so now you can see them. They're much easier to pick out because we have that dark line between each one. We're going to mix in some pale yellow twice for our highlights. Remember, we use that on the skin, so this will help to tie the underbelly color into the skin a little bit. And with this miniature, this is actually an excellent example of where to put your highlights. Because the tail twists, we have to change where the highlights hit on this underbelly section. So at the top, we start with a full line of a highlight. But as the tail twists around, you can see we're starting to highlight just the top section. So we have to adjust where the light is hitting on the model based on where the tail turns. Again, perfect example of where to highlight your miniatures. And always the easiest way to tell is just if you look at the miniature from the top down, wherever you can see, that's the area that's going to be most hit by sunlight. So those are the areas you want to highlight. Time to paint some scales, and we're adding a little blue into the mix, blue and Escorpina green. And all we're doing is painting dots. It's as simple as that. We could paint a much more complex scale pattern on this model. However, we do have a problem. Because the tail twists and turns so much, it will be very difficult to make a clear hand-painted pattern all over the tail. So we are just going to go with dots, easy to replicate and easy to paint in those hard-to-reach areas. For a little variety, we are mixing up the paint mix and switching out the blue for a little bit of plague brown, and just doing a line of dots, not a exactly straight line, but a little bit lighter towards the center section down her back. Down her middle, I'm painting a diamond pattern using jade green. And if you look close there, you may notice that I'm painting it over a series of blue and black dots. The problem was that with the dots in the center, the tail looked way too busy. So I had to clean it up and simplify the pattern a little bit by having this solid section in the middle. So it looked a lot more pleasing to the eye and it looked a lot cleaner. Painting the hair is a simple process. First burnt red, then burnt red mixed equally with parasite brown, and then straight parasite brown. Perhaps a little bit of unusual hair color considering all the green skin. However, once again, using Harryhausen as inspiration. So we are going to go with the red hair. And there is our Harryhausen inspired Naga, all done. Told you it'd be quick. You can see we didn't spend a whole lot of time painting these scales, and you don't always have to do that. I could have done a much more complex pattern on the scales if I wanted to, but on the tabletop, just doing dots like this is so easy, and it really adds just a little bit of something extra to the miniature, and it doesn't take any time at all. So you don't have to go in and paint individual hairs on your miniature sometimes. Just take it easy, do a simple.
Yeah, I don't see anything. Let's go over to we'll get the chests that eluded me for so long.
Arise, myself and my shadow! Arise, myself and my shadow!
Trying to upgrade Welcome Company. Never did. Huh? Ooh, it's like a baseball bat. Poison Rapier, that's cool. Club. 90 damage club. Harp is 20, so if I want to go back, swords and clubs, that's pretty good. Wait. Damn it.
Okay.
There we go. What is happening, y'all? Well,
All right. Alfred could spring a trap on any one of us.
we're with the power. Flying dagger. $40? Oh shit! That's essentially like it's basically the upgraded version of my arrow thing. It's really good. I get behind that. Even though I don't arrow. Flying dagger. Arrow is good, but dagger is just better. Get there.
There it is. Get on this train.
I feel like guns would be really fun. I don't know, I'm thinking they might be like more of a game plus thing.
There it is. Get on this train.
You have like plentiful ammo.
Get this open.
Oh, there we go. I was like, oh wait, I'm running out of time. Back up there. He did. One day about me. It is the Honebami. It is a just it looks like a greatsword, but it's a katana. And I know I picked up something else. I'm gonna have to honestly just like go back and watch the drops I was getting. Last time. What the hell is this thing?
Stay behind.
So we have a very small window to get in it. What the hell am I doing damage to it? Maybe he kills it. Everything I do is only hitting it for one. Now I'm burning it. Weird, it was like it had immunity or something. It's a massive fist.
I didn't do it for you.
Fine. But I owe you all the same. You are fierce and sharp.
on something and see how it works. Yeah, what's up with all the bosses dropping out? So it does damage when it extends and then damage when you play. Like there's a save or something up top. You're going pretty far down and fighting past a bunch of shit. Especially after the boss fight, you know, there should be a teleport or a save. Yep, there we go. Got it. Audit. That was my gamer sixth sense right there. I can just sense. Assassins are kind of weird. Like, it's not. But it doesn't.
Save your things.
Mint now. Oof. That's expensive. Good ground. Die! The ground sorcery lab. Ooh, sweet. Zillion buggers. Ooh. Gradually recover H key while shard is active. Oh, that is alright. So, well, there's the mint now. Oof. That's expensive.
Arise, myself and my shadow!
I feel like maybe if you upgraded it, or like upgraded, probably get something like a decent chunk of health per MD. So just 5. Walnut. Ooh, I need walnut to upgrade my pictures.
Arise, myself and my shadow! Oh, Miriam. Dominique, what are you doing here? Looking for Zangetsu. Have you seen him? Yes. We fought together aboard the train. Perhaps I misjudged his intentions.
How did she get here?
What? Zangetsu was with you. But that's... Is something wrong? I asked him to go to the underground sands, but he must have chosen to disregard that request. If you see him again, would you ask him to report back to me? All right. Alfred could spring a trap on any one of us at any time. Thank you, Miriam, and stay safe.
Why are you here? That's super weird to me. She was doing some experiment she shouldn't be doing. And the pictures plus the blade, especially how the blade has like that return hit. God, what a dirty combination together. Another save. It's kind of soon for another save. Maybe we're about to come up on another boss.
Arise, myself and my shadow!
We are. Boss right there. Oh, damn. Oh, fuck it. Let's go take it out, I guess. Do I have on, yeah, I do.
I move so fast. You won't even see me. Arise,
It's like an edgy anime character.
Yeah, this has been a long play by Alex to get me to come in and do a podcast so I can read his script.
But just to go back to the one-on-ones, on the scheduling side, I think we should point out that it is very common in LA, especially to have people reschedule, 50 or 100 times a week.
I mean, not literally that many
Not
times,
literally.
but yeah, like it's very common to have your drinks pushed 2-3 times kind of thing. Because things come up at the last minute or, whatever, that's fine. And you just need to accept that. Like, they're not trying to, fob you off or anything in most circumstances.
Exactly. I mean, especially with the mid people that we mentioned, I've had a couple of drinks mutually being pushed back since probably January now. Definitely happens. Although, don't confuse that with ghosting, which I'm sure we'll be talking about in some future podcasts.
Yeah, if people just literally never reply to your emails or text, just maybe assume that they're not interested. So one of the things to think about when you are deepening those relationships with people after you first met them is, what do you have to offer, rather than thinking about what you can kind of take from them, what they can give to you. How can you kind of build some value in yourself that they might be interested in continuing that relationship?
One of the biggest fear in terms of networking is this question of what are we going to talk about? There's this awkward silence right now. I can't really continue the conversation. And there's really two sides to networking. There's the giving and the getting. And you are only in control of the giving, right? It is in your best interest to quote unquote work that side, the one that you control up to 100%. And usually, as we said, when you give people something, they'll usually want to give you more back. That's the reciprocity principle.
Yeah, be generous.
One of the things you can do is build a resource list or anything like that of what you are interested in to share and discuss. So practically speaking, I have my own list occasionally of things that interest me or things that I want to discuss with friends, family, other people that I meet at networking events. It can be a show I really enjoyed, like BoJack Horseman, or a book, an article I read, information I have learned, tip, tricks, anything like that at an event.
And we're not saying that you literally need to unravel a scroll in front of them and be like, one, BoJack Horseman, have you watched it? But have those things in mind and kind of riff off of them. If they're talking about how they work in TV comedy or animation or something, oh my god, have you seen the second season of BoJack?
Exactly.
It's so great, and you guys can kind of riff back and forth about that.
Exactly. I think a big misconception about this idea of what can I offer them is it's all about the job, so your career or that kind of stuff. It's really not about that. It's really about, before you go out to Mixer or some event, think of 3 resources or tips, shows, opportunities, whatever it is that you'd like to discuss and you are actually enthused about talking about with someone else.
Yeah, and if you are meeting with a specific person, if it's not a general Mixer, then you can tailor that to them as well.
Exactly.
Their interests and their
Exactly.
fields of interest. So another thing that you can do in terms of offering things to these people is someone that you've met. You can make introduction. Once you've started chatting and you realize the things they're interested in, particularly if it is I want to get into maybe music supervision or something.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I have this friend who works over at WME in the music department, and I heard they're looking for new people. Let me set you guys up for a drink. So that's a really valuable thing that you could do for them it's happened to me before where I've been talking about, hey, I'm a TV comedy writer. I just finished writing like a Rick and Morty spec for a fellowship, and someone's actually been like, oh well, I know like John Johnson over at Starburns, which is the studio that makes Rick and Morty, and he's like, let me read your Rick and Morty script. I'm not going to promise you that I'll send it to him or anything, but if I find it really funny, who knows? So
Did you make up that story? Because I don't know what Johnson at Starburns.
well, yes, the name is made up. I'm not going to
I'm not going to reveal the actual person.
exactly. So,
Just to jump off on that, a lot of people in my mind, especially lower level assistant, aspiring writers, feel very protective about people they know and the things they know, understandably so. But I feel like that level of sharing, or like that lack of sharing, is almost detrimental to the well-being of the industry, because it's really about other people introducing other people to other people.
oh, totally. This entire like industry is about who knows who and all that kind of thing. In that way, it doesn't mean that like I know this person, I'm going to hide that fact from everyone, and no one should know because they're my resource and my friend. Like everyone else knows that person too, and so in fact it might even like make you seem better in someone else's
Exactly.
eyes if you can be open about which relationships you have with people. It's more valuable.
Absolutely, and it's not just relationships. It's also, information that you know or events that you are attending. Don't be protected. I feel like unless you literally signed an NDA about something, the more you share, I feel the better you'll be.
Exactly, and then that's not to say that if you are lucky enough to be friends with like a showrunner or something, every writer you meet, you're not going to be like, hey, let me put your script in front of them. But you could mention that you're,
Give instead of just receiving.
exactly. That's what we're trying to say. Another thing you can look at doing, particularly if you're meeting other writers and that kind of thing, is maybe offer to give notes on their script. Or, another really great thing is to exchange scripts with each other and be like, hey, let's give each other thoughts and feedback, so it's not just a one-sided thing with one person is reading a script and saying yes or no. It's like, here are some points, here are some.
Exactly. I mean, if you're a fellow aspiring writer, don't be afraid to exchange scripts with other aspiring writers, whether online or in person. There's other tools that you have at your arsenal that you can offer, maybe social media experience, something like that, which is definitely going to be more valuable to someone else than to you, potentially.
Yeah, totally. I attended a table read with some writers that a friend of mine connected me with, and they just needed more people to like read the roles in the script and to give them notes at the end of it. And by the time we got through it, that we gave them back some notes, my writing partner and I, and they actually liked them so much that they kept in touch with us. They had a pilot that they had set up at Comedy Central that was, at the very last stage about to be kind of greenlit. And then so we gave them notes on that pilot, and unfortunately the pilot didn't end up going, but through that, the people that I met and the people they recommended me to helped me get like a general meeting at Comedy Central. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
As we've been saying, meeting people is really about sharing experiences and knowledge, not about just taking and using people just for your desired outcome. You want to generate value for yourself, whether that means having a list of things you'd like to share or people you want to meet. I know it's kind of like hippy-dippy, but it is actually true.
You can apply that in general to life as well, like not just this industry, as you don't want to be kind of like just looking for what you can take from other people. Like look at what value you can generate and share that with other people. So
exactly. And now let's talk a little bit about what happens if you hit the jackpot and someone cares about you.
Well,
to give you an
that
opportunity.
happens.
Yeah, that does happen occasionally. How should you prepare?
Well, so if you meet someone and they actually want to read your stuff, you should have scripts ready to be read. Like if you're a writer and you go out there and you tell people you're a writer, you should never say that without having actually written something. There are so many people in this town that are like, oh, I think I'm like an actor, writer, director, producer, and I just really love like writing. Oh, cool. What have you written? Like I haven't written anything like per se, but like I'm thinking about it. So like don't be that person. Try to actually have something that's ready and produced and ready to show to people, because if you get lucky enough that you've met someone who is like, oh cool, I'm actually looking for like a horror screenplay, like my boss, it needs new horror writers, maybe I can get you in, and you're like, oh, I'm only at like the outline stage.
Yeah, I have a rule of thumb of never talking in details about a project until I'm at least in first draft, because otherwise I feel like it jinxes my own want to like write the project.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to be like, I'm working on this, this, and this, and like, oh, that one sounds really interesting, and all you've got for it is a log line, and then they're like, send it to me when you're done, and then like 12 months later, you're like, oh, by the way, it's done now, and they're like, wait, what was that? Who are you? Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a psychological thing. I think it's specifically for weight loss, where if you say you are going to do something instead of actually doing it, you're less likely to do it. So let's say if you say like, oh, I'm going to work out 3 times a week the next like 6 months or whatever, you're less likely to do that than not saying anything at all and just working out 2 times a week.
yeah,
Exactly.
that makes a lot of sense.
So I think it's the same thing with scripts. Like, don't just say, oh, I have this like epic sci-fi future and not have anything.
Yeah, and not just scripts, but even resumes. If you're moving here to town, have an updated resume ready to go. I'm not saying you need to print it out and bring it with you to your meeting, to your
No
drinks.
hard copies, please.
Yeah, but like if someone's like, oh, we're looking for someone at our work, or I get all these job postings all the time, be ready to go home later that night, an hour or two later, and email them your resume so that they can pass it on to people. Don't be like, oh, I haven't updated it for like a year and I need to put these extra things on. It'll give me a while, they'll forget about you.
Especially those lower level assistant gigs, whether that's Redis PA, Office PA, Redis Assistant, like all these jobs literally get filled in a matter of hours. Not days, not weeks, hours. Like if someone offers you the opportunity, oh, I know about this like opening on the 100 or whatever it is, you should send me your resume. Do that within like an hour of meeting that person.
Yeah, if you get it to them a week later, the person's probably already been working for 5 days.
Exactly. They're already in training in Zoom 3.
Yeah, they've probably already got a freelance script.
It's over. Just quit.
They're already kosher running that shirt by the time you've sent your resume in for it. So let's take a look at some of the takeaways from today's episode. What's number 1, Alex?
Number 1 takeaway is just networking is about making friends and building long-lasting relationships, not just, what can you do for me now, man?
Exactly. Everyone will hate you if you are that person. So number 2, know the difference between mixers, which are less personal, and one-on-ones, which, are roughly equivalent to like a first date in a platonic way.
Number 3 would be don't be pushy or demand things when you meet someone new.
It's a good way to never meet them again. Number 4, figure out what you can actually give to other people before thinking about what they can do for you. Build that list of resources and those things that you know that you can offer to others.
And number 5, if you're lucky enough that someone cares about you and wants to read your stuff or help you out with a job, be ready. Have a resume, have a script ready to be sent out.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah, and what are some resources we can give to our fine listeners?
Right, so for me, and this is going to sound incredibly obvious because I know almost everyone listening to this will have one, but Facebook. I think people actually underestimate how much you can use it to advance your career rather than just procrastinate from writing. The amount of networking stuff you can get done by joining Facebook groups like we talked about last time. Let's say you had like a fun conversation interaction on a friend's wall post with someone else and you realize that they're in the industry as well or whatever. Shoot them a message and then like interact and add them as a friend and go out for a drink and that kind of thing. Use your discretion about that, but particularly with Facebook groups, there's a great way that you can just kind of find events and meet people and really expand your network online. There are tons of people that I have as a Facebook friend that I've chatted to a lot that I still haven't had the chance to even go and get a drink with, but I know if I needed to chat to them about something or whatever, I still have them in my network.
It's definitely one of the most informal, casual ways of connecting with people.
Yeah, there's no obligation to it, really. Like, they can just ignore your friend request if they want to, or they can add you and never talk to you again. But either way, open up those channels of communication.
Right, and the 2 resources I'll be mentioning, one is this book called Make Your Contacts Count. It's pretty much one of the best books on networking I've ever read. It is really straightforward advice and content on both short and long-term strategies, conversations you can have, and just assessing your own skills and mindset. The second resource I want to mention is this app called Full Contact. Full Contact is what is called a CMS, or contact management software. As the name implies, it's basically a fancy way of managing contacts. So this is an app, a free app that's available on both iOS and Android. It also has a web interface, and it really backs up your contacts. syncs it up across multiple accounts, whether that's Google, iCloud, Exchange, whatever it is, and also syncs with any social networks that you may have. So if you have Twitter followers or anything like that, it's going to sync everything up based on the emails and everything like that.
Huh, I did not know about that. I might have to download it.
You should definitely do it. It's really useful. I mean, maybe not when you have like 15 contacts in your phone, but when you are in this industry and you have literally hundreds and hundreds of names in your Rolodex or virtual Rolodex, it's definitely one of the most useful apps I have.
All right, so we would like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to us. Please leave a review on paperteam.co/iTunes. That's .co, not .com. Any of those iTunes reviews will help the show get new listeners and build our community.
And you can find us online at TV Calling.